We should be live. Hi, everyone. Today I am revisiting an old friend. Marcus Vine from Warlord Games is back. He's been on the channel before, and actually, last time you were here, Marcus, we discussed doing this today because I remember us talking about you should come back in like 6 months' time, and we should talk about how this all went with V3. Because last time I interviewed, that was before the release of V3.
Yeah, thank you, Bo. Happy to be back. And we did say, hey, let's go and see what happens in the competitive scene and in the wider community in 6 months. I think we had some predictions about how many different this is the meta, this is the best way to play there would be. And I think it's been really, really, really interesting. And I can't believe it's been pretty much 6 months already. It honestly has.
So much has happened.
Well, it's absolutely flown by, but it also feels like third edition's been here forever now.
Yeah.
We're seeing people so comfortable with it. And obviously, as people get more comfortable with it, that's where they start to explore the weird and wacky depths. And I think we're just at the start now of that phase where
Yeah.
I think, one of the things we said we wanted to talk about was like, what's the state of the competitive landscape right now? Because I
Exactly.
think we're seeing a really interesting meta that's developed in the UK.
Mm.
I'll be interested to see, obviously, what the Danish scene's doing. But I think where we're at now is a very, very different place to where
Yes.
we were at the end of Bolt Action Second Edition. I don't
Very.
think there aren't very many truly competitive Bolt Action Second Edition armies
No.
that would stick around in today's landscape.
No.
So
I
what are
completely
you
agree.
seeing, Bo? What are you seeing out in the big wide world of competitive Bolt Action? Where do you say that the meta stands? Where do you think it is?
I think it's in a good place in some respects and in a weird place in some respects. If that, um, what I think we're seeing in most of the tournaments that I've been reviewing on this channel and the tournaments I've been going to is people are bringing lots of different stuff. Like they're trying out lots of different army builds, different types of how can you make this like work, and should I run that or should I run that? So a lot of stuff are being tried out. A lot of people are trying out like heavy tanks, Death Star like units, and sort of doing okay. Better than I'm used to people doing anyway. So yeah, it's been weird for me in that respect. But when we talked last time, that was basically what we both expected it to be. That stuff would happen and the meta would just poof explode in every which way, right?
Yeah,
Um,
and I think the really interesting thing as well, the difference from the end of second edition
yeah,
to this sort of the beginning of third edition is in second edition, really the thing that would shift the meta would be a new campaign or a new theatre book. And
yeah,
that might shift the meta a little bit for one or two armies, maybe. But
yeah,
now with third edition, we've got every 3 months on the roadmap. Boom, just a
yeah,
completely new book
yeah,
for every single one of those big nations. And it's not just, oh, maybe a cool new unit that you can incorporate into your build, as we saw with Germany in the Defend the Fatherland special rule, and as we're going to see in America with by air, land, and sea. That is just a seismic change to how you play your army. So
mm,
many new options in
yeah,
terms of units, but also so many new options in terms of how you want to build the army, because with the Defend the Fatherland, all of your units, infantry and weapons teams can now do those specific things, whether you want fanatics, whether you want fieldcraft, you
yeah,
know. And I think what we're starting to see with Germany, and what I think we're really going to see with America, is
mm,
people have got these ideas that, oh, this is how it works right now. And then the book comes out and it's okay, the landscape changes. And I think that's
yeah,
so cool,
yeah.
because you don't see those lists that just sit and they work in a really competitive sense forever. They have to move with the times, and top competitive players are being challenged to evolve their armies and
Mm.
evolve to basically to meet these new threats, which I think is just awesome.
Yeah, it really is. Because where I started my V3 is not where I am anymore. Although there's like a couple of ideas that are still floating around that sort of have stuck with me, but a lot different is happening right now. a lot more new things are happening. So yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think one of the really cool things that we're seeing as well is people are just having different ideas. People are, as you said earlier, that they're finding that room to try something new.
Mm,
Because I think some of that is down to the platoon structures. I think with second edition's platoon structure, the generic reinforced platoon, or whether you were using a theatre selector, it was much easier to end up with an army that kind of looked a bit like every other army, even if it was, whether it was a barbecue list
yeah.
or, whatever it was trying to do. Whereas with third edition now, cool, you want to go gunline, now you
Mm,
can really go gunline, run an artillery battery, run a heavy
exactly.
weapons
Yeah.
platoon. Or do you want to go armor, as you say? People having that freedom to go,
Mm,
actually, I'm going to go autocannon light tanks, which are really popular at the moment because they are seriously powerful for their
yeah.
points.
Yeah.
Or people, I think possibly Germany kickstarted it, obviously with Panzer Ace.
Mm-hmm.
People realizing actually there is some mileage with those points reductions. There's still a big points investment, but um, you can
You get more
actually
for
run
the
them out.
points, right? You get more for
Yeah,
those points
uh,
if you invest in that veteran tank. Also, because you shrug off the pins that are incoming, because you're
yeah.
veteran. They can't hurt you, they can't pin you. Yeah, so that is really interesting. Where the meta has me a little worried is right now what we're seeing is a lot of the tournaments are being won by armor. So like, and that was also true in version 2, right? That is that something that you worry about, that armored platoon may be too powerful and too
So
winning?
So I don't know that we worry about it necessarily.
Okay.
If that does turn out to be okay, this is the way that competitive players are winning right now.
Mm,
Obviously, you've got to build your list to beat the things that's going to the tournament, right?
true.
So if we're seeing people that are winning tournaments with armored platoons, my natural response there is, will this list beat 4 Panzer IVs? Can
Yep.
this list deal with a veteran Panther and some Panzer IIs? You
Mm,
know, I think what we'll see is there will be a period. Remember when barbecue lists were invincible in second
yes.
edition?
Yeah.
Absolutely invincible. And then there was that watershed moment and people realized, oh, this is how you beat them. And they
Mm.
almost went away for a bit. They came back, I
Yeah.
think, a little bit right at the end.
Yeah, they
But I
did a
think
little bit,
what
but yeah, I
what
think there
will
were some
happen, I
players
think,
who knew how to play them, who brought them back because they were like, well, they shouldn't have gone because I know how to play this still.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I'm still firmly of the opinion. I think it's one of the greatest strengths of bolt action
Mm,
is it's always, yes, list building is such an important part of competitive play, but when the dice hit the table,
yeah.
it is all about knowing and understanding your list. And crucially, in bolt action, it's all about having that little bit of dice bag luck when you need it. And yes, you can stack it as much as you want. You can go right up to the dice cap,
Yep.
but there's always that chance that it's just not going to come out for you at the right time.
And
And I
that for
think
me is one of the things actually that you mentioned here that has stayed the same from version 2 into version 3, that there is a Goldilocks zone. Because yeah, you can go all the way up to the dice cap. You can with the new force organization chart, you can build in 1250 points, you could easily build a 32 point order dice list.
yeah,
But that may not be good. I think there's a Goldilocks zone. Always there's a Goldilocks zone where, and it's lower than some people think, but it's also a little higher than some people think.
that's I really want to shout out the bolt action grand tournament that's going to
Yeah,
be in Leicester in August, because
yeah,
that's 18 order dice at 1250, and I love that because
yeah.
I think that 18 for me is the upper limit of the Goldilocks zone. And obviously I think as a competitive player your natural inclination is always to get to the max, like have a
For
but
some people, yeah, for some.
but
Me,
then you but
the most list I make right now, I'm
mm,
around 17, 18 dice for
ex,
1250.
ex, Exactly, and that's the thing, right? Once you get over that initial thing of, oh,
Yeah.
18 dice, I'm going to go to 18. And then you actually realize, no, you know what? This list could be better
Mm,
down at 15, 16.
yeah.
For me, I find myself building most of my lists now at about 15 to 17. I think
Yeah.
16's a nice butter spot for me. I think because it does give you that opportunity to make that one big investment, whether that is a veteran heavy tank.
Yeah.
You know, obviously the death of inexperienced light mortars. Sorry, Bo. I know they were close to your heart.
They are not dead, Marcus. They are not dead at all. Which is one of the things, right? This is so wonderful because everyone can now argue about it. Is this good or is that good? And I'm like, I'm every single list I'm building, I'm using light mortars.
and,
Every single list.
and honestly, I must say, it's probably my second favorite part of the hobby. After actually playing the games,
Yeah.
is doing stuff like this, is sitting down with the Warlord Games app, you know, and just messing around with lists,
Obsessively making lists.
and just chatting to people, you know, whether it's the guys that from my club that I play with,
Yeah.
or whether it's yourself, or whether it's just someone on the internet. And obviously the great joys of working at Warlord is whether it's someone in the office at work on lunch break, but just talking about the theory, talking about the games that we're gonna play and what might happen.
The theory crafting of it all.
I love it, and it was one of the things I think that I felt most privileged about.
Yeah.
Having worked on the development of third edition, was getting to see inside the nuts and bolts of actually how Alessio's mind works when he's developing the game, of seeing the process that goes into a unit coming in, obviously of the playtesting team and the hard work and feedback that they give us, and how all of these minds work to produce the game that we all love. And the amount of times I'll sit there and I'll see a change, or I'll see a new rule, or I'll see a new unit, I'll go, oh, the internet's going to love this. This is going to start some really fun, productive threads. And I think at the end of this, there's a really killer list.
So for you, Marcus, what you asked me what has stayed the same. What for you has stayed the same between these two versions?
So for me, the big thing that has stayed the same, other than atmosphere, right, which is intangible, but it's really important. A game of bolt action in a competitive environment, it still feels like a game of bolt action in a competitive environment. The game is the same. It's a new addition, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, it really does.
It's still bolt action, and I think that's so crucial. One of the things I think that has actually stayed the same, that a lot of people initially, I think, kind of wrote off, is that infantry are still king. They are still what's going to win you battles. Because at the end of the day, unless your list is entirely built to just table your opponent and not care about the objectives, and hey, that is a valid way to build an army. Yeah, your opponent can't win if they don't have an army left.
Yep.
But I think in the majority of cases, don't overlook the infantry. I think that can be a real temptation with third edition because so many new toys are available to you. It can be so easy to go, oh, you know, two squads, don't really care, regulars, or maybe they're going to be in X if I'm really saving the points. And it actually, what the ability to take multiple rifle platoons or to add a recce platoon or even an engineer platoon does, is it gives you the option to actually, let's get my infantry doing work for me. And I found towards the end of second edition, my US Marines were absolutely doing bits for me. And that was an army that was functionally an infantry horde. 13-man regular squads with 3 BARs. I think I ran 3 or 4 of them at 1100. And I loved that army because it just had enough bodies to do everything it needed to do.
Yeah.
And the supporting weapons were really there to take out my opponent's supporting weapons and to stop my opponent doing what they wanted to do to my army, while my infantry went and did the things I needed them to do to win the game. And it still feels like that for me in bolt action. Now, whether the infantry squads look exactly the same, now that's a different matter. They don't. They really, let's be honest, they really don't. Veterans with SMGs, man. We love veterans with SMGs this edition.
And LMGs in some units, because
yes,
I never used those in version 2, but now all the time. Yeah.
So that for me has been the big thing that's actually really stayed the same is despite all of these possibilities and options, you still can't neglect your infantry.
No, you need them. You definitely need them. Yeah.
That for me, I think, has been the big thing that stayed the same. For me, one of the biggest changes actually
Mm?
has been people realizing that actually you don't necessarily need to cover every single base in your army.
Yeah.
Because the generic reinforced platoon in second edition encouraged you to kind of take one of everything.
Yeah, it
So
did.
everyone had a bit of everything.
Yeah.
Whereas now you see people massively skewing their armies,
Yeah.
whether it's like HE gun lines that are really just reliant on lucky pins to deal with armor, or whether it's armor lists that really you're using like secondary functions of heavy anti-tank guns as your only blast weapons.
Yep.
We're seeing these really cool skews, and people are realizing that your army doesn't need to be an all-rounder if you don't want it to be. You can really go hard on my
Yep.
army does one thing aggressively
Mm.
really well, and
Mm.
I'm enjoying that a lot, especially with building my German lists at the minute.
Well, that
I'm
sort of leads us into the next question, doesn't it? Is
yes.
that the new thing you're working on, Germans?
It is indeed. So I'm 99.9% certain I'm going to take Germans to the Grand Tournament. I've got sort of two serious builds
Yep.
and one build that is completely stupid, but I think it'll be funny. Because the stupid build is I managed to get 2 regular mouses and 12 order dice into a 1250 point list.
Well, we have one guy in Denmark who's done that to a tournament.
And
Forever called the Mouse Man.
And that's kind of my fallback list, right? That's actually a really fun, what if themed list.
Yeah.
And if I'm like, you know what, actually, I just want to take something a bit silly to the Grand Tournament,
Yeah.
I'll take the double mouse list, because I just like the idea of plonking one mouse down and go, oh man, you brought a mouse. That's really funny. No,
And then
mate.
plonking the second
I
one.
bought, I bought 2. I think that'd be really funny. The two serious concepts are actually pretty similar in concept, and they revolve really around, well, two really common units between the two of them: Brandenburgers, and Stummels.
Ooh,
I
Stummels are
think
nice.
I think the Stummel is possibly armies of Germany's real hidden gem,
I
because
agree.
it where it's taken as a self-propelled gun, not a transport, that slots in really nicely.
Yep.
I think for the points value, that light howitzer 8-man transport capacity, and I think that with a squad of Brandenburgers who just give you those rules by existing in your army, which is so nice, and they're also absolute maniacs. Give them SMGs, jump out the Stummel, off you go.
Yep.
Couple of Stummels, squad of Brandenburgers, and then one of the concepts is more Panzer Grenadiers, because I actually really like Panzer Grenadiers, because obviously
Everyone
they're in
does. Everyone does.
obviously they're in open trop transports.
Yeah.
They're going to be taking pins. That's right. We don't care. We're still getting out of the transport and shooting you in the face with assault rifles and SMGs. The other one is Cossacks. I really, really like Cossacks.
Me too.
I saw your tutorial the other day on outflanking with cavalry, and I'm like, yep, no, Bo is thinking up my street as well. And then really it's a case of salt and pepper to taste. It's what else goes in the armored platoon. Is it, for example, like a 2-2-1 with the Panzerbuchse, or is it a Panhard? Because I love the Panhard. It's like a baby Puma. What's the exact composition of my artillery platoon? Is it like 3 light autocannons, or are we talking maybe 2 light autocannons and a howling cow? Because I still think, despite the changes to multi-launchers, I still think there is room for one of them in the army.
Yeah, I agree. If I was running Germans, and by the way, you'll ask me this question in a minute. Yeah, I am thinking about it, but I was definitely going to take one multi-launcher, because it's such a good way of forcing your enemy to spread out a bit.
And that's it. It has its use with the change to the range. Its use period is in the first 2 turns of the game.
Exactly.
And but for the points you pay for it versus the damage output, that's absolutely fine. I think that works. There's going to come a time where your multi-launcher is useless. Doesn't matter. I didn't pay that many points for it, and I get to make that gamble in the first 2 turns that could really swing me the game early. So I like one. And then it's an artillery battery. Get the light autocannons in there. The other one that I think is interesting, that this is possibly an off-meta opinion, but I'm going to try it at some point in a few test games. Inexperienced light anti-tank guns. So because
they're
so
+1 to hit,
because they're so cheap, and the +1 to hit cancels out the -1 against vehicles.
Yeah.
I actually think there's something in there. It's not something I would build a list around, but what I want to see is, actually, will 3 inexperienced light anti-tank guns at 105 points, will that give me just enough anti-tank that that kind of covers that base off, and I don't have to sacrifice that capacity in my list to still get other stuff? So I'm going to try it. It might go horribly, but one of those, 3 of those with a regular platoon commander, and just snap them to.
Go.
3 shots. Let's have it. Let's see if I can, if nothing else, let's see if I can put 3 pins on the tank and maybe force it to go down with a glancing hit damage table result.
Brilliant. I love it.
So that's where I'm at the minute. So I'm really workshopping those 2 sort of serious concepts.
Yeah.
Playing test games with the guys. I'm also helping as a quote-unquote list consultant for the Warlord team that's going to the World Team Championships. So they've kind of said, I can't go, sadly, I'm away. But they said, Marcus, can you look at our list? And I'm like, I'll look at your list, lads. And I'll tell you what, they are determined not to disgrace the company. I think there might be a couple of surprises there in some of their lists.
Brilliant.
So what about you? What about you, Bo? What absolute filth and horridness are you cooking up in the lab?
Well, I'm working on 3 things. I am working on my list for the WTC, and I've yet to determine exactly what I'm going to do, but I think I may have it now. So I've started training with that a little bit, and there's a couple of things that still need to fall in line. I'm building I used to have a large partisan army, but right now I'm just waiting for the partisan book, Marcus.
As I say, I think partisans will have their day, Bo. Partisans will have their day.
I'll wait for that then. But my Ukrainian partisans were always in Axis uniforms, so right now I'm building the remaining bits I need to run them as Germans.
Okay.
So, as you said, Cossacks, and I'm going a completely different route from you. I'm going to build so many LMGs and MMG teams that I can just have a whole baseline of shooty bits, and then have my Cossacks just ram in from the flank. Hammer and anvil, baby. That's the thing. That's what I'm doing with my Germans.
It's a really interesting theory, because you're hammer and anvil, and I'm very much I want my anvil to move up the table.
Yeah.
I want my anvil to be hitting you at about midfield, with guys jumping out of the Stummels, and the Stummels getting point blank shots as the Cossacks come in. But
both
it's the same.
Work.
I actually really want to play your list at some point. We need to organise a game.
We need to organise a game. Yeah, true.
Probably get it on the channel if we can.
And the final thing that I'm working on right now is I'm building a tournament pack with tested missions, like some of them from the book, straight out of the book, some of the ones that weren't Warlord Games missions, and a couple of my own that I'm sort of collecting. And then I've had it out to some play testers, and we're going to use bits of the ideas that I'm running in Sealand Open, which is coming up in May. So all of that is also running. So I'm also like doing tournament stuff at the same time as I'm building armies. So yeah,
which is really awesome. I do just kind of want to say, obviously, to you and to everyone else out there that's kind of doing the same thing, that's running events, that's coming up with their own packs, whether that be a selector like World Open War down in Southend, whether it be a pack like the GT or one like your own. We love them all. We think they're part of what makes the bolt action tournament community so good, so diverse. And that's one thing that I'm super glad has carried over from second edition.
Really
is
has,
that attitude that people tournament organizers and like club presidents and store runners, they know what their community likes to play, so that each individual event all over the world has its own little flavor. And I think that's brilliant. You're not just going to the same event, 10 times a year, and that means you can't necessarily bring the same list.
Exactly. You have to always change the lists, which is so great right now. Every single tournament I'm thinking of going to, different list, maybe even different nation, like lots of stuff going on all the time, which is so brilliant.
Right, and I think as well, and that's one that obviously I did say to you that I'd touch on, is obviously as the new books come out. I think it's a really great opportunity for everyone to kind of dive into them, because I think when people, when you come to second edition, if you came late in the day to second edition, there's all these books and there's all this like received wisdom and there's all this meta. Whereas everyone now in third edition is seeing these books for the first time at basically the same time. So what that means is everyone's suddenly going, "Oh, Americans are out. Should we do Americans?" And the people, and the people that were doing, get you buy list armies out of the rule book are now going, "Oh wait, there's so much more potential for this force now." I think American players are really gonna like armies of the USA. From a competitive standpoint, from a thematic standpoint, it's a dream. There's so much stuff in there. But I think from a competitive standpoint, US players are actually going to be pretty happy with where they find their army sitting. I think that America, there's a real strength in diversity of units.
Brilliant.
And the ability to make that list really genuinely do whatever you want it to do in a completely different way that Germany does, which I think is really nice. And it's something that I think we were really keen to have, is that the armies feel different.
Yeah.
And
it's one of the things that's always really attracted people to Bold Action, that the armies feel different, but like the individual guy, a guy with a rifle, is the same in every single army. But you can play them in subtly different ways, which all of them are valid, but they're just not the same.
Exactly. And I think, and then looking slightly further forward, I think that
are we going to talk into upcoming books now?
We'll talk about one upcoming book, which is obviously Armies of GB, the next one after the USA. I think competitive GB players are both going to have a field day with Armies of GB, but I think they're going to find that they want to make changes to their lists. I think they're going to see stuff in there that they're like, we want to take advantage of this new stuff. We want to move away from maybe some of the tried and true stuff that we thought, oh, it's it's just like second edition, it works for us.
Interesting. Are you saying I need to go out and invest in more minis?
Though I'm always going to say that you need to go out and invest in more minis. I can actually see space on your shelves behind you.
Yeah, there's a lot of room right now. Let's get more Brits.
you could fit, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 more British armies on there, Bo?
Absolutely. I just need a few more shelves. Then I'm good to go.
But I think, the way it was the same thing with Germans, we saw that actually German players went, oh, wait, from a competitive standpoint, there are so many new options. I'm going to challenge myself with, this is what I was running with second ed or without of the rulebook Germans. Now the book's here. And even it's the same for me. My German armies look completely different with the new book compared to how they looked at the start of third edition.
Yeah.
And I'm just so excited to see what the community makes of it, because obviously internally we have our little predictions of what we think is going to be really popular, what we think is going to be really competitive. And I'd say about 85% of the time, we're like, nailed it. We saw Brandenburgs, we're like, people are going to love Brandenburgers. Cossacks, people are going to love Cossacks. And then, there's always those few where we're like, okay. We
didn't see that one coming, but it happens,
And we love it, because that means that people are looking so deeply at it and getting so invested. Other things that are really cool that are coming up, obviously the tournament special figure
which is going to be what? Can you reveal that?
I can't reveal what or who it is going to be, but what I will tell everyone is we've already shown you them. We've already shown you we have already shown you a picture of the new tournament figure. So people have to comb back and have a look at our previous communications and see which one they think it might be. That comes out at the in April. So
Yep.
that obviously, if you are super desperate to get your hands on Inglorious, he is going to be going away starting in April. He is not. It's exactly the same as Koenig. He is not going to be available for many years. So if there is a local tournament
Get them
that you
while
know
they're
has got,
hot. Yeah.
yeah, if you know there's a local tournament that's got Warlord prize support and they've got their Ingloriouses, get out there and win it.
Yep. I still got a few of those in my prize support box, which sits down at the bottom of this shelves. So yeah.
I do want to shout out as well, actually, to my colleague Dave Barr. The last time we spoke, I was the tournament coordinator for Warlord Games.
Yep.
I've since moved on in my role, so I'm now obviously more responsible for community site content, for articles, and all of the various bits and bobs inside the company that I do. Dave is our events manager, events coordinator. He has taken over the tournament support role as well. He's doing an absolutely amazing job.
And let's get his email in the description for this video,
so
right? So that if people need to contact Dave,
the email is actually
in the description.
The email is exactly the same as it was for me as well. It was info@warlordgames.com, and just put in the the tagline of your message, tournament support. And Dave is doing such a good job growing the game around the world. He put another event on in Venezuela. He was telling me today. How cool is that? That
I heard about that one.
that bolt action is being played genuinely all over the world. So that's what I want to shout out. And then in terms of upcoming big tournaments for bolt action, obviously we've got the WTC coming up, which I know you're going to be at, Bo. The Grand Tournament in August, which I really hope we can drag you down to. And of course, World Open War towards the end of the year down in Southend as well. Sort of our three premier big international tournaments, and a new, not a new one because we were there in a small presence last year, but the London GT as well. Bolt Action is going to be back there, and it is going to be bigger and better there this year with third edition as well. So we're really excited about that. So it's a good year for us, but it's also a great year for what we're seeing from the community, the amount of events that are going on. So sort of everyone.
Lots of things going on. I mean, so many tournaments, so many game days that I'm hearing about. It's basically non-stop. If I could travel around the world in an airplane, I could go from just city to city and play every single weekend, I think.
And how cool is that? And what we want to say from us at Warlord to the competitive community is thank you so much. It really is amazing, to see. And it was something that, we've always kind of said is that, hey, there is no wrong way to play bolt action so long as you're having fun. And we see all these photos and videos and posts about people having fun at tournaments every weekend. And we're like, yeah, you guys are doing it right.
Yeah, exactly. Marcus, thank you so much for coming on the channel. And maybe we should make this a fixed half-year thing where we go back and review what's happening in the competitive scene of bolt action, because this was fun going back, and I rewatched our video from last time, leading up to this. It felt like it was years ago, but
it did. No, I agree. I think that'd be a really cool thing to do. So let's pencil it in. Obviously, 6 months' time, we'll have 2 new books out with USA and GB. We might even be about to have or just have had Soviets as well, depending on how we time it. So I think that could be a really good time to pick it up, Bo.
Yeah, because then we'll have the 4 major nations out.
And then obviously Japan will be on the way. We'll have started talking about some of what you can expect to see in Japan. So I think that'd be a really good idea, Bo. And obviously, thank you very much for having me again.
Welcome. That was it from us today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you in half a year, I guess.
See you later, folks.
Cheers. And